I've gone through every SAT practice test and looked at every SAT geometry question, and I've narrowed down 4 main type of questions that they like to ask again and again. If you follow this guide, you're never going to miss another geometry question again. So let's get right into it. All right, so the first type of question that they're going to ask you in geometry is area questions. So you should know how to comfortably find the area of rectangles, triangles, and circles. Maybe trapezoids, but I don't really see that asked too often. It's mainly those three. But another variation they like to ask of the triangle specifically is the right triangle. So I would really make sure you know this one. Okay, so the area of a right triangle, let's say I have this right triangle right here. Let's draw it out. You're going to have legs A, B, and C, where C is the hypotenuse. The area of a right triangle is you take A times B and you divide it by 2. So it's always going to be those legs, okay? So what you have to do with one like this is you have to find out which side is A and B. So the two smaller sides, remember the hypotenuse is always the bigger side, and then you're just going to multiply them and divide by 2. I'm going to let you guys figure that one out. Okay, so another way they might ask this is they'll just give you a picture, and you're just asked to find the area here. So this time it's really easy. You'll just do 3 times 5 over 2, so that'll just be 15 over 2. So real simple if they give it like that. So in addition to area, they might just switch it up and talk about volume a little bit. I'm not going to go into too much detail because they pretty much just give you the formulas at the beginning of the section. But in this case, they might ask it like this, where you're given a volume of 432 and they tell you the area of the base of the cylinder is 24, and then they want to know what the height is. So with these prisms and cylinders, what you got to know is that the volume is equal to the area of the base times the height. And in this case, they just tell us what that area of the base is. So, and they tell us the volume. So the height, you can just solve for that. That'll be volume over the area of the base. So you're just going to divide them, okay? So if you had to like figure out the area of the base, that's when you would need to plug in the pi r squared for the circle area. But this is pretty simple. Just got to know this formula. So one thing they've been asking a lot lately is these trig questions. In this question, we're asked to find tangent of A. And what you have to know here is that this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, and we're asked to find tangent of A, which is 60. So we can find the sides easily if we just know the 30, 60, 90 rule. So we look at 30, and we're going to divide the hypotenuse by 2. So we'll put 27 to that side. And then the 60 side will be 27 just times square root of 3. And then if you know that, the tangent will be opposite over adjacent. The 27s will cancel, so you'll just be left with root 3. So in addition to all the trig formulas, you should also know how to do Pythag. So in this question right here, we have this triangle. We are going to call it ABC, where B is the right angle. That's what they tell us. And we're told that AB is 10 root 37, and that BC is 24 root 37. Okay, so this is pretty simple now. We just want to find x, the hypotenuse, so we just have to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and you'll be able to get that easily. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys take it from here, but just know how to set these up. Okay, so circles. This is a big topic that they like to ask almost every SAT multiple times in their geometry questions. The first type of circle question is pretty easy. It's the circle equation questions, just knowing how to interpret them. Basically, I'm not going to go into too much detail. You just need to know the circle formula, how to graph a circle based off the circle formula, and just interpreting it in the context of the problem. So in this one, they're just asking like what happens if you shift it down to. So you should basically know how to convert this equation into the version where it's shifted down to, okay? Pretty simple. I'll let you guys figure out this question. Make sure you know the relationship between radius, diameter, and circumference. I picked this question as an example because I think it's a perfect encapsulation of like everything you need to know about the basics of a circle. So we're given the circumference, and we're told that PR and QS are diameters. So that just means that they're going to go through the center of the circle, and the radius would be half of that if a question asks anything about that. And the length of arc PS is twice the length of arc PQ. So you're going to be getting questions about arc length as well. So that's why I picked this one. It has a little bit of everything. So what you have to know basically is that the arc length is proportional to the circumference, the percentage of the circle it takes up. So you have to find out what angle divided by 360, what fraction that is of the circle to get this. So basically the whole deal with this is arc PS and PQ, so we're dealing with this side of the circle. We know that this whole arc from Q to S, that's going to be 180 degrees. So we basically know that this is going to be 2/3 of that, and this is going to be 1/3 of that. So that'll be 120 degrees. This will be 60 degrees. And from there, you can figure it out. Sometimes you're going to get these really hard problems. I call them combo problems because they're going to combine many different geometric concepts. And these are some of the hardest problems in the entire SAT. So I just want to show you the trick on how to set these up. So here we're told that a square is inscribed in a circle. If you don't know what that means, I'm going to draw it out. So it's inscribed, so it means it's inside the circle. So I'm going to draw my circle, and then I'm going to draw my square. It's going to touch the edges of the circle like that. And then basically we're told that the radius of the circle is 20 square root of 2 over 2 inches. I don't know why they wrote it like that. You could just write it as 10 square root of 2, simplify it a little bit. And then we're told to find the side length in inches of the square. Okay, so we're supposed to find S. So what you want to do, here's the trick. I'm not going to work it out for you entirely, but if I show you how to set it up, I think you can get it. What you need to know is that a radius is a point that goes from the center to the edge of the circle. So we know that this right here is a radius, and we know the length because they told it to us. So this right here is 10 root 2. Okay, we know that. And then what we can do now basically is we can find the area of the circle by building a little triangle. So we can build a little right triangle, and we know that this angle has to be 45 degrees, right? So if we know that that angle is 45 degrees, and that means the other angle will be 45 degrees, and we know a side length, we can use our trig functions to get the other ones, right? So if we use our like our special right triangle rules, we know that this is going to be 10, and this side is going to be 10, and then the other side, this is half of the side length, so the other one is basically 10. So I know I said I wasn't going to do it, but that just shows that like an intimidating problem turns out to be easier. I didn't quite tell you the answer, but I think we can figure it out from here. On the SAT, they like to ask at least one transversal question per test. And if you're not familiar with these, you're going to miss it, but they're pretty easy to do if you just know the basics. So what you have to know is basically y and x. These are called vertical angles. They're always going to be equal to each other. And then these two angles will also be equal to each other. So that's all you have to know to find x and y. Basically, they give you these equations for x and y, and then you just got to set them equal to each other. But that's not what the question's asking for. The question's asking for z, okay? So you have to find y and then get z. But how do we get z? Well, the other thing you need to know is like these two angles that are on the same little strip, like one spot away from each other, these are going to be supplementary. So that means they're going to add up to 180. So basically, y plus z will equal 180. Okay? So if you know that, then you can easily find z. So the process for this, set x and y equal to each other, find k, plug that back into x, get x, or I'm sorry, plug that back into y, get y, and then subtract 180, do 180 minus y, and that'll leave you a z. Some other info I just want to mention, this angle right here will also be equal to y, and then this angle right here will also be equal to z. Those are called alternate interior corresponding angles, something like that, and those show up sometimes too, so just be aware of that. But that's basically how these work. Thank you guys for making it all the way to the end of the video. Make sure to smash that like button down below and subscribe. It really helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out some of my other SAT videos.